I have the pleasure to invite Dr. Chami Hossain from India, who is the board member of the World Wind Energy Association, has more than 30 years of experience in the wind power sector, working for industry, for associations, as an entrepreneur. So he really knows the Indian wind sector as one of the first pioneers. And Chami, you will speak about the most recent experience with policies in India, and you have also brought a colleague with you, Mr. Kannan, with you will then also later introduce. Chami, if I may hand over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and very nice to see all of you in the I would say, COVID. Now people are trying to get out of the COVID scenario, and this little talk we were going to have jointly with Mr. Kannan. He is from a company based in south of India, and they own something like 400 megawatts of renewable energy, and he is the director of finance, so he holds a very crucial position in the company. And also that he comes from Tamil Nadu, so that is a place where a lot of wind related activities and SME related activities have been there. I'll just try to share my screen. Okay. Yeah. So before I get into my presentation here, I would like to mention, and this is something that has not been flagged in the discussions, or maybe I missed it perhaps, that this scenario of COVID, this is a worldwide scenario, and it is not necessarily something like a cyclone or a hurricane which has come and which has gone. It will probably stay with us. In fact, I was seeing something from WHO that they said that we may just have to live with it in the long term, like people have lived with the HIV or something. So this brings in a lot of changes probably in the way we work, because this has exposed a vulnerability in the modern society and the modern economy. And that is that we depend too much on some centralized production. So we depend too much in industrial centralized production, and that is not very good when you have disasters like this. You need more of localization, you need more of local manufacturing, local electricity generation and things like that. And in that context, when we are talking about renewable energy, because it is geographically dispersed, I think it is a important point that we keep in mind, that there is all the more need to look at more localized and diversified and distributed generation rather than centralized generation. So our presentation is more about auctions, and as I mentioned earlier in my presentation that was conducted a few weeks back, again a WWEA webinar, and then I have there are some. Okay, so there again we discussed about how auctions have impacted particularly India, and they have also impacted other countries perhaps. But the thing with India is that till 2017, we had a certain policy framework, and that policy framework then changed. And in the previous policy framework or the regulatory framework, we had what is called the feed-in tariff. And in the feed-in tariff mechanism, we were able to put up something like 32 gigawatt of wind power in the country. And along with that 32 megawatt of wind power, there was a whole industry which evolved. And with that industry, there were capabilities, capacities, and planning and everything, and different kinds of stakeholders who were associated with that. But when this transition happened from FIT to auction, then the whole industry underwent a change. It went into a very different kind of scenario where all those who were there active in wind energy earlier suddenly found themselves out of the market. They were not able to participate in that market. So that has created many issues, and we will be looking at that. And Mr. Kannan will also speak about that with regard to particularly Tamil Nadu and also rest of the country. Now, one question I have, and this is on my presentation here, that why have auctions? So this is something that is very, very sort of a favorite of governments and authorities and utilities, that they want to go for auctions because fundamentally they want to reduce the cost of procuring electricity from wind energy. But how much low they want to go, and why should one aim at a tariff from wind energy which is almost less than the tariff of electricity generation from coal-based power generation? I mean, this is something that defeats the logic somehow. As you see now, how is wind there? Wind is a solution, and as I say, it's not a problem. The problem was fossil fuel-based generation electricity, which we have done for more than 100 years, and which has created the CO2 problem, which has created this climate change, global warming, serious issues, and we are just trying to solve that environmental problem. So on the one hand, we are solving the problem, and on the other hand, we are paid much less than for polluting or something like that. So it is sort of going against the basic logic of what we are trying to do. So the other benefits that associated with wind energy, I would say, is of course one is solving the environmental problem, the other is reducing dependence on fossil fuel imports, and then we are creating much more employment and we are strengthening the local economies. Going forward, I see that what happens with the auctions is that it impacts the entire supply chain. So when you are reducing your tariff, then the impact is on all the supply chain, starting from site measurements, land acquisition, design, operations, components that we purchase, materials, the entire supply chain, the balance of system, which is transformers, transmission lines, everywhere the costs have to be cut, even the human resource. And this could lead to compromises in quality, efficiency, and apart from the fact that it has an impact on the local economy, it has an impact on SME sector, because many of these activities are taken up by small enterprises. For example, land aggregation, for example, doing works at the wind farms, these are done by small enterprises. And this is an impact and which impacts the entire industry and employment and local economy. Now, I'll just go through this slide a little bit, and then I will hand over to Kannan to say what he has to say. I was just looking at the tariffs. So on the y-axis, you have the tariff that is there, and on the x-axis, we have the term loan interest, so the interest on the lending. And if you get very low interest rates, then you can bid very low tariffs. But these interest rates are not possible for small enterprises. These come to very big funds and very big companies, MNCs, who can leverage, their connections globally to get funds at low interest rates. The small enterprises therefore cannot bid because their tariffs will be higher and they will remain out of business. So this is one aspect of the auctions. So the next slide onwards, I would request Kannan to say something.
Good afternoon, I'm Kannan. To continue from where Jami left, just to brief further on the history of capacity additions in India, Until 2011, predominantly the capacity addition was aided by SME segment and dominated in a few states, mostly in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu capacity addition was driven largely by small and medium corporates who were investing for meeting their own power consumption, and also aided by some fiscal incentives provided by the government to save. With the advent of IPPs in the 2011-12, the rate of capacity addition in the country went up quite steeply, and the phase between 2013 and 17 in the country witnessed a huge increase. In the fiscal 2017 alone, the total capacity addition in the country was at its highest at 5.5 gigawatt. And in 2017, after the first bidding auction was held, the tariff discovered was about 30%, 40% lower than some of the peak tariff prevailing in the country in some of the states. In India, the feed-in tariff was fixed for different regions based on the wind power potential and certain assumptions made for each of the states. So the state DISCOM started resisting signing PPAs after the first auction bid price was discovered, and started benchmarking with the bid prices for procuring power. So the feed-in tariff practically came to a grinding halt with that. This is the list of the projects, auction projects since 2017. So far, a total of 5,265 megawatts or 5.26 gigawatts have come on auction. And the tariff initially, the first tariff that was discovered was 3 rupee 46 paise, or about approximately $5 cents, and that started declining gradually with every auction. There was an intense competition from both the OEMs and the developers because the auction quantum was less and the DISCOMs were not signing PPA. So there's a pressure to sell by the OEMs and to add capacity by the developers. And in the bid to get some quantum allotted, they started quoting lower rates. And after a point of time, the tariff started reversing. Auction is certainly good for the country because it brings in efficiency and gets the best rate for the consumer, the DISCOM, everything. But only thing is that the tariff discovered should be economically viable so that all the stakeholders in the system stand to gain and they are able to sustain the operations over a longer period of time. This tariff based on the very first auction became to be benchmarked, and the feed-in tariff coming to a grinding halt has severely impacted the MSME segment, because none of them are able to implement the projects because there's no feed-in tariff practically available for MSE. MSE means small and medium enterprises to invest in wind projects. During the feed-in tariff regime, can we move on to the next slide, please? Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. See, of the total, just go down a bit. Of the total 5.2 gigawatts, the projects come, not 5. Can you go down?
Let me try. I think I can only see this much.
Just please keep time in mind. Huh?
Next. Yeah, sure. So, 5.2. Okay. So the total project capacity commissioned under the feed-in tariff is only 2.7 gigawatt. Of the 12 gigawatt auction capacity, only 2.7 has been commissioned. It is definitely in the last 3 years, the capacity addition pace has come down. Now, while auction can continue to remain in place, there has to be a mechanism to find what is viable for all the stakeholders. And when we reach that level, then the capacity addition pace can pick up. Alongside, there has to be a window for which provides for a feed-in tariff based on which the SMEs can also invest in the wind power projects. Right now, only large players, maybe about 20, 25, not more than that, participate in the bidding, and all the capacity additions come only from those who participate in the bidding. So this has practically restricted the number of players participating in the market, and also the concentration of wind power projects has practically come to 2 states. The projects used to be set up in 7 different geographical locations prior to competitive bidding coming into force. Now it is only between 2 predominant wind-rich states, namely Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, where wind potential is relatively higher compared to other states where the projects have been set up. So the opportunities are now limited only to these two states. This has obviously led to a situation where the SMEs and those who were dependent on SMEs in the other states are getting affected. It is affecting the employment opportunities. It has also affected the OEMs located in other states in terms of providing employment to other states. So our view is that if a tariff that is viable is determined in the auction, which I think the process is maturing, because after a steep decline, the process has started reversing and the tariff has started going up. And there's a move to also remove the ceiling tariff. And if that happens, then along with that, if a feed-in tariff is also fixed for projects up to a capacity of 25 megawatt or 10 megawatt with some ceiling to promote SMEs also to invest, then we feel that the capacity addition can happen at a much faster pace in India. The other thing that is not considered properly is that when the capacities are set up only in two states and or the power generated from those projects to the other states, which are normally away about 1,000 or even more than that kilometers, the transmission lines have to be set up, and there is a huge cost incurred for wheeling the power in terms of transmission charges and transmission losses. That works out to about 50% of the tariff discovered. And if that is considered, the actual effective cost for the buying state is significantly higher. And if that actual cost is considered, including the intrinsic cost of transmission, then feed-in tariff that was prevailing earlier is not significantly higher. So this fact has to be considered, and balancing the interest of SMEs and the better price discovery through auctioning is required for a sustained growth of the industry in a manner that all stakeholders are able to sustain the operations.
Thank you, Kannan. Now we will almost be closing. Just I want to say that these two maps which we show here, one which is where we had wind power activities prior to the auctions, and the other one which is after the auction, you can clearly see the activities have narrowed down to Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. So these are very telling maps which show that the development has got narrowed down, while otherwise it was much more spread out. And this is something that we think we can try and go back to what Kannan said, having some kind of bidding mechanism or auctions meant just for small enterprises. So this is what I had to say, and so the impact of auctions is one that the domestic and local entities are unable to compete and are shutting down. We have seen many companies shut down here in India, particularly those who are domestic companies doing manufacturing and things like that. The SME and MSME sector, particularly in Tamil Nadu and also in Gujarat and other states, have been sort of shunted out of the market, and they are waiting to find their way back. There has been a loss of jobs very significantly. There is a huge geographical concentration, as we have shown in the map. And another thing, only a few stakeholders participate now, and it would be better that this is a broader thing. I think with this we end our presentation, and thank you very much, and we look forward to any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to both of you.